first of all, the Jose Mourinho fallout continues, and his pretty shocking abuse of the referee Anthony Taylor after the Europa League final during the week. Shocking lack of awareness on his own part in terms of the power and influence that it carries and the impact that it can have. And we have seen the scenes in the Rome airport, I think it was, as Anthony Taylor went to fly home with his family, and we can give you, I think, a look at those on screen there now if you haven't managed to come across it up to now. But there he is with what appears to be certainly some members of his family. It
was reported that it was his daughter and wife with him, and then there was also his mum was there, and I think his son, which you can't see in that video, but there's another video of a bottle being thrown at them when they're at like one of the airport bars, and then you see there on the video a chair being thrown at them as well.
That is insanity. Like, you can see the daughter in tears, the wife's probably in tears there as well. But like, shocking in one sense, Adrian, of the word, but that Mourinho would have stooped to those levels, but also not shocking. Like you almost half expect Mourinho with the antics on the side of the pitch throughout the game, and clearly he's bred it into his Roma players as well, because every single little decision, the officials and Michael Oliver as well as the fourth official were getting harried and harassed, and it's a terrible example to set. And when you see the video then, even in the car park, the lack of action by the officials, I mean by the legal officials, the police that are there, or security underneath the stadium, and then in the airport, I don't know what the police are doing standing there, but they are the airport police, whoever they were, but
they look so disinterested in getting involved. Like, it's not even like they kind of go around Taylor and his family to give them a little bit of backing. They just kind of stand back and let people attack them. And the other thing as well, like, Mourinho talked in his post-match press conference that they lost with dignity, and he kept his dignity intact. And then you see him like standing outside waiting, as you said, in the car park for Anthony Taylor, calling him an effing crook and an effing disgrace, and is he Spanish and all this sort of stuff. And you're like, how deluded are you that you think you lost with dignity, and that you're it's like, it's schoolyard sort of stuff. It's like the bully waiting for you outside the schoolyard gates whenever you finish up school, and they're like, oh well, I can't get you in school because I'll get in trouble then, but I'll wait for you just outside the grounds, so I won't.
See, that's where I disagree. I think that's the football version of dignity, is the part and parcel of coming off the back of a really tight defeat, is that you go after the ref. And like, it's not rude, like this sense of decorum and respect for your opponents and respect during the game, in the sense of, well, we went down with pride. The ref isn't involved in that. They're considered ancillary to the entire experience. They are as much your opposition as your actual opposition. So when you dehumanize the referee, as he did when he went to the car park, I wasn't surprised.
I think the car park stuff goes beyond dehumanizing the referee even. Like, that's just pure intimidation, and it's a lack of respect, it's intimidation, it's giving other people the right to do what they did to Anthony Taylor in the airport. Like, at the end of the day, you have to accept that, like, Mourinho is a professional. He gets paid hundreds of thousands of euro every single week to play the game, and if he wants to run off the bench every time one of his players gets like a little bit of a touch, that's fine, that's his choice. But what he did after the game, and saying that, he won with dignity, or he lost with dignity, and that, he was totally respectful, and then to sit in the car park, like, that's putting out a narrative that you can do whatever you want and say whatever you want.
Yeah, but it's the fact that he sees the camera in the car park, he sees people filming, or certainly the person filming that we saw the clip of, and it's like he still doesn't care, he continues. And then you wonder then, we were talking yesterday about how those Roma fans love Mourinho, or described him as Caesar, I think, and like Mourinho essentially gave them permission to go out and be that vociferous and outrageously aggressive in the airport. Like, his actions on the sideline, and certainly his actions in the car park after the game, was basically a free pass for the Roma fans, going, this guy's subhuman, this referee.
Well, I think we need to be careful with that, but you certainly have to take the point that he carries sway, and he has certainly riled up the fans, but I do think like that you can't dismiss the personal responsibility of
course,
oh no, of course
absolute
not.
thugs that turn up at an airport to attack a family. And like, as mad as he is, and like, he's an Alex Ferguson disciple, Ferguson is, I would say, living in his head non-stop. What would Fergie do here? I'm sure is a question that comes to him regularly, and that would have been absolutely classic textbook Alex Ferguson carry on. Absolute textbook. You've seen it a million times, ranting and raving at the referee. You wouldn't want to dissociate the personal responsibility of those thugs that turn up at the airport from what he was doing. Now, I certainly take the point that there's an influence between, there's an invisible line between one and the other. I totally take that. But like, all of this stuff is just such an accepted part of football, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Like,
well, I mean, think about Klopp and the fourth official a few weeks ago and running up and celebrating, and then going after the officials afterwards saying they've a vendetta against us, it seems. Like that. There's a good long read in The Guardian from a few weeks ago talking about the life of a referee, and I think Andre Mariner was explaining that he'd go in for the pre-match sort of preamble of a game, and players would be coming in with their kids, and they said, "There's the referee, boo," and that seems jovial and sort of, you know, whatever. But you know, the fact that that's treated in a lighthearted manner, that the referee is automatically the enemy from the off, that can't be good either.
You also have the impact of that sort of carry on, because kids are paying attention to it. That clip that you mentioned, Kathleen, doing the rounds, like, will have tens and tens of millions of views. There are kids paying attention to that. I see it on the sidelines all the time, every weekend, where there are kids mimicking whatever they see in games of the weekend, whether it's celebrations or skills or styles of goal. So it's also that's how we speak to that's how you deal with the referee. And like, often at that level, those referees are not adults, they're teenagers who are stepping in to do a job. And the more you talk to people, I'm only very new to that scene, the more you talk to people who are involved in it over a number of years, the more you see how outrageous the behaviour can be on a fairly regular basis. And that would be the concern for me, that sort of mimicking of what you see. And there is a responsibility there. And I also think that, like, when you talk about football accepts this, like, football could do away with this tomorrow if there were serious people, in the words of our good friend Logan Roy, if they were in any way interested in stamping this thing out, they could do it like that.
Yeah.
They just could. And it's not, people talk about, it has to be this sort of bottom-up approach, or no, just straight away, Premier League, Champions League, Europa League, all of them. Here's what we're going to do. Here's how we are going to sanction you. If you overstep this line again, here's what's going to happen.
We should qualify it by saying it's not limited to football either. I mean, there's very high profile cases in the GAA recently of refs having enough. Personally, I don't necessarily think the stuff in the Champions Cup final was great for Jakob Hyper. You know, whatever you decide about his decisions, you know, you can't. I don't think there's any point having that Ferrari at halftime. Certainly the French Open, you've seen umpires like getting an earful from players. Even when we play tag rugby on a Wednesday, the stuff that the refs get is ridiculous. They get, and that's a social league where, you know, it's only a bit of crack.
Abuse, like,
yeah,
really,
total abuse, like calling someone an effing disgrace on the pitch for, you know, those refs aren't paid. This is meant to be a bit of fun, and they're getting dogs abuse, and the refs have actually, like, they will give out a yellow card, but you can see that there's a little bit of a resigned, this is part of it now.
Yeah,
like, that's sick.
Yeah,
it really is.
But it's like Ref Support UK were the group, I think, that originally tweeted it, or certainly one of the tweets that went viral yesterday. They were the ones who commented on it, and they were saying that this has got to the worrying phase now, where a serious incident or a murder is only around the corner. And you're, Adrian, sitting wondering when this, like, things like this are going to change. It'll take a referee to be being killed, you know, a high profile referee after some incident like this, and that might sound like something that's absolutely never going to happen, but look at those scenes yesterday. I mean, it's not that hard to think about a referee being seriously injured or killed by a group of hostile fans who are upset over a number of decisions. It's terrifying, and just to see his family with him as well, it's just,
I think it's unfortunate that, like, it's bad that it happened, but also the timing of it happening as well. You know, like, it's the end of the season. If Mourinho does, like, we don't even know if Mourinho is going to stay at Roma. He has another year left on his contract, I think, but there was a bit of talk that he might move on. And if he does, like, if he gets a financial penalty, it's not going to mean anything to him. If he gets a ban, there's also a chance that you don't know where he's going to be or where he's actually going to play it out. And he has said before, when he's got bans, that he doesn't really care. Klopp said the same thing as well when he got his ban. He was like, oh, it's kind of good because, like, I have a better view of the pitch. And, like, these guys aren't even taking it seriously whenever they're getting punished for these things. So you're like, how do you punish?
Well, that's it. And we were talking about it pre-show about the stuff in Cork City and certain other issues in football. You made the point that it doesn't really, it could be racism or homophobia or anything, but it just seems impossible to dislodge these feelings of hatred and this circle of abuse that, for all the show racism, the red card, etc., there's but if you put in an appeal, you might get off. Like, you'll still be in the football ecosystem, really.
Yeah, and sorry, this notion does the rounds, and I absolutely understand that rugby has more respect, generally speaking, I would say, than football when it comes to referees and officials, but that's not to say that it doesn't exist in rugby. Like, rugby is not clean of this whatsoever. The referee abuse happens in every single sport.
Well, you look at even the Champions Cup final, how much of this narrative after that was about the fact of how the referee was treated, and whether it's like Sean O'Brien being stationed outside the dressing room to make sure that O'Gara or whoever it was in the La Rochelle team can't get near him, or the things that Johnny Sexton said to him afterward, when they're on the pitch and they're reffed or they're mic'd up and stuff, it's easier to be like, okay, there's a bit of respect there, but there's also the things that you probably don't see as much as well behind the scenes.
But even our conversations with Vinnie Perth every week, and we can't help this, but every week invariably we end up talking about referees at some point, because there have been a number of decisions that have been proved controversial, or maybe teams have thought they were controversial in League of Ireland matches. And I was chatting to someone recently who was at a League of Ireland match, and they were like, I think they were standing near the corner flag, and they were standing beside a group of people who, for the entire duration of the first half, were just abusing the linesman, running, jogging down and he can't avoid it. He has to stay along that line, and for 45 minutes has to listen to a torrent of abuse over maybe one offside call that they felt was incorrect. That's just one example at one League of Ireland match, but it happens week in, week out. So I don't know why you'd be a referee.
No. I was talking to a former professional ref this week, and he made a point, to be the devil's advocate here for a second, that he feels that referees are far too friendly with players as well off the pitch. And you can kind of see what he means. The referees that constantly go up to Messi and Ronaldo and want a selfie, that must water down the relationship slightly as well.
I don't know. I think that is just a different issue.
Do you not think it sort of softens their authority?
It's an interesting point, but I just think it's a totally different issue. It can't muddy the absolute desperate need for referees to be protected, which that's stuff. Look, we've seen it before, and Ireland playing Portugal, and the referee is buttering up Ronaldo so he can go up to him after and get the jersey off him, and it's frustrating and all that, but I just think that there's another side to that. I think this one is, could we bring in sanctions straight away, just edict from the top down, we're going to sanction if you're approaching the referee, if you're giving out, you hear the language, you see the mouthing all the time. It's just part of the culture. It's just sure, why would you not do that, get in the referee's ear, and I just think that's a single issue that could be dealt with really quickly if there was any appetite to do it, which I don't know. Apparently there's not. Loads of comments coming in about this one, and do keep them coming in. Not all of them we can necessarily read out, it must be said. But somebody saying it was a soccer version of Trump and Trumpism, that Mourinho's a clown. It doesn't happen in rugby, says Damien, which I think we've established is not exactly the case.
I feel like that was sarcastic from Damien there.
Yeah, there is clearly a better culture in rugby. They have taken very clear steps to protect the referee from a lot of the stuff that we're talking about. It's the outlier. There are outlier examples. There are examples, but they're outliers. There
is also the point to what you were saying earlier, Adrian, about personal responsibility and stuff. I do think there is something on UEFA and the fact that they didn't provide Taylor and his family with appropriate cover. They kind of they would have known if he was going through the airport at that time there was going to be fans there who were probably unhappy.
That's
probably
on UEFA as well.
Absolutely.
UEFA need to give that man a bit of A, security, or B, private access to some way out of Budapest, because that was ridiculous.
Yeah, because for all we give out about the fans who actually attacked him, idiot's gonna idiot, so you have to mitigate it somehow.
Yeah, UEFA can well afford a private playing for him and his family and all the other officials back to England.
And I also think, though, as well, that would go some way to them acknowledging that there is a problem. Like, if you have to provide that sort of cover for your referees, then you're acknowledging that there's a problem. You're acknowledging that they need that cover. And
that's it.
It leaves them with less excuses, I suppose, the other side, when Mourinho does say something, or another referee says something, or another manager, said something about a referee.
Yeah, well, there'll be all the usual wringing of hands now after this, and isn't it terrible, and well, we really should look to do something about it. But Fergus Keogh, good morning to you, Fergus. It's up to the authorities to clamp down and support the refs. Insult the ref on the pitch, red card. Insult the ref in post-match, 10-game ban. That's it. Simple as that. Like, that does away with it. That does away with 95% of this stuff overnight. Like, it's incredible to me that it hasn't happened so far. Super Ken says that the media are complicit in this, though. How often are players diving, cheating, claiming corners, throw-ins that aren't theirs? They're gaslighting the referees and abusing them when they get stuff wrong. Again, I just think that's another thing that needs to be looked at. But I just think one thing at a time. This is a very simple thing. It doesn't need to be overly complicated.
There's no nuanced language here. It's not being put down to, like, that horrible phrase, gamesmanship. It's just abuse.
And who's making, by the way, when that comes up, right, around whatever boardroom, who's putting their hand up to go, sorry, no, could we not do this? Like, could we allow this to continue?
Yeah.
Is there somebody in the room saying that? Like, I just don't understand what let's just go and do this. If
Johnny going to come out today, I feel like a referee.
Yeah.
So that is that piece. Like, it's I'm sure we haven't heard the last of it, by the way. I'm sure that will continue. Some other bits and pieces doing the rounds. Caoimhín Kelleher is leaving Liverpool, so says Stephen Kenny. News to Jurgen Klopp, and I did wonder, was like Caoimhín Kelleher, because Nathan said to him, like, okay, and you've been chatting to him, and he was like, oh yeah, we chat all the time. It's like, is this news to people? I thought this was the private conversations I was having with Caoimhín. Surely everybody knows this stuff, but it turns out that they don't. But equally, at 24 years of age, the sentiment that Stephen Kenny was expressing about Caoimhín Kelleher getting the hell out of there to get some football is bang on.
I think so, but he also said the same about O'Benny yesterday as well, and it kind of felt like one of the worst sales pitches of all time. It's like, I've got all these quality players, why can't I shift them? It kind of felt, I don't know, maybe just let nature take its course a little bit. But
where's he going to go?
That's the thing. Like, there aren't many top flight clubs that need a goalkeeper. Does he go to a championship team? I mean, maybe. That's not the worst thing for Caoimhín Kelleher. Get some game time, get 42 games under his belt or whatever it is in the championship next year.
Better than that, isn't he? I mean,
how do we know that?
Exactly. I take that point entirely. But it appears as though he's better than that.
He seems to be a good
judging
player.
by the last game of the season.
Well, yeah, conceded 4.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if Keylor Navas moves away from Forest, there's an opening there for him, I think.
I also thought he was a bit iffy on a couple of those. Sometimes you can concede 4 goals and not be at fault for any, but I did think for 1 or 2 he was maybe. And
then he will make the case, and we will, because we want him to succeed. That it's impossible to be just thrust into it, having no game time behind you.
Yeah, there has to be a level of ring rust.
Yeah.
That was his first Premier League appearance of the season in the last game, wasn't it? Mm-hmm. I mean, that you got to move. You got to move clubs. Like, I'm sure he's quite happy. Like, maybe for him it's just a career, pick up the decent money. I'm sure he's getting Liverpool and go to training.
Well, I think it's an easy thing to do when they're winning medals.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, absolutely. And
when they've gone to shit now, I think he's like,
no, totally. And I think Phil Egan made a good point that there'll be some Europa League games next year that Liverpool might be able to put out a weakened side. So maybe Caoimhín's appearances might hit double figures next year. That'll be good. But I do think regular game time, as we've said, despite them going down, I think Bazunu's experience at Southampton this year will stand to him in years to come. It's all about just getting game time and getting experience and getting the knowledge of the game, because I think, as we see, goalkeepers really come into their own kind of towards the end of their career.
It comes down to his own ambition. He's 24 now. Does he want to be a Republic of Ireland #1 goalkeeper? Is that how he wants to be remembered? Like, does he want to be Shay Given, or does he want to be, with all due respect to number 2s over the years, Dean Kiley or
wow,
Paddy Kelly. No, but these lads have great careers.
Wow.
They're great careers at club level. But do you not want to be? Do you not want to look back in your career when you're 35, 40 and go, I was the number one for my country for a set number of years? Is that not a fair thing?
Waking up this morning and started going about his day. And
no
all
offence,
of a
Paddy Kelly had a great career. And a number of Irish caps. But and you can still have a great club career. But if he has any international ambitions, he has to be playing regularly week in, week out.
Spurs crying out for a keeper, says one commentator here. I mean, look at that.
Spurs has come up quite a lot about whenever Kelleher is mentioned.
And it is, if you're a club like Tottenham, the point that the conversation is going to be, well, we haven't really seen enough of him, isn't it?
Yeah, it's true.
So, that's it. It's catch-22 a little bit, isn't it?
Yeah. Right, Cameron, Kathleen, thanks a million. An early fire pit, I'll offer to say.
Bank holiday special.